IELTS Listening, version K5002.
You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to section 1 on page 2 of your question booklet. Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a man who is looking for a part-time job for his son and the manager of a garden centre. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6 on page 2. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Hello, Greenwell Garden Centres.
Oh, hello. I'm calling about the part-time job you were advertising last week.
Oh, you mean for the delivery driver?
No, for a general assistant. My son's looking for a part-time job and I said I'd call you about it. I already picked up an application form from one of your staff.
The man is calling about a part-time job for a general assistant, so assistant has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
Hello, Greenwell Garden Centres.
Oh, hello. I'm calling about the part-time job you were advertising last week.
Oh, you mean for the delivery driver?
No, for a general assistant. My son's looking for a part-time job and I said I'd call you about it. I already picked up an application form from one of your staff.
I see. Well, we'll shortly have a position available in our new Market Road branch. That's opening next month. Or there's one available right now in our branch in Station Road, and that's where the actual job advert was for.
I see. It's definitely the current job I'm calling about.
Right. Now, there were a couple of options regarding working hours. We're really looking for someone that could do both Monday and Wednesday afternoons, or the same hours on Thursday and Friday.
What about Sunday?
That'd work, provided he could do a full day.
That wouldn't be a problem. Great. And what would the job involve exactly?
Let me just look at the job description for that particular job. Well, looks like there'd be some working on the checkout, taking payment for goods, and I suppose our general assistants also do rather a lot of lifting of some quite heavy items, so good physical strength is quite important for this position. There's some assisting with customer inquiries as well, but we don't expect new staff to have much knowledge about the plants themselves. That's what the more experienced staff are there for. Then, especially in the summer, the plants need a lot of watering.
I see. Well, I think he could manage all that.
Good. Now, there are a few other qualifications and skills that the job calls for. The first one being communication skills are important. As you know, first impressions count for a lot. And the other thing we would be looking for in our applicants for this position is he should have some ability in maths, a basic level at least.
Well, he did well in that subject at school, and he's polite and sociable too, so hopefully he'll match your expectations.
Great.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10 on page 2. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
So, am I right in thinking he's still at high school?
He's about to finish for the summer break, so he could come for an interview this week if that's convenient.
How about Wednesday, say about 10 a.m?
I'm afraid that's the morning of his last exam. Could we make it later instead, perhaps at 2:30?
5 would be better for us.
OK, that's fine.
So, his name is...
It's Liam Avery.
OK, got that. So, Liam will be having the interview with me. My name's Maria Rapana. R-A-P for Peter, A-N-A. On Tuesday, Liam needs to ring me on my direct line to confirm that he's coming, and that's 021 303 8874.
OK.
Oh, just one more thing. I need to see Liam's passport at the interview just to see that he's eligible to work in this country.
Sure, I'll tell him. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for calling.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2 on page 3. Section 2. You will hear an accommodation agent telling a student about different accommodation options. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14 on page 3. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 14.
Hello, can I help?
Yes, I'm looking for accommodation. I'm a student in my second year at the college, and I wanted to rent something from September for myself and a friend.
Well, we've got several choices at the moment. Near the college, we've got a flat, a house, or there's a student hostel, all at about the same rent. But of course, they all have different features and different things included in the rent. The properties don't all have gardens, I'm afraid. The house is quite small, not much space around it. It has got a bit of space at the back, but I wouldn't call it a garden.
Mm-hmm.
The hostel is part of a city development, so there's no space for a garden. But the flat has a communal garden that is shared by all the tenants. I would say that that's very good value for the price. Have you got a car?
Yes.
There are garages round the corner from the house. But you have to rent those separately and they might not be available.
Oh.
But each flat is allotted a garage in the grounds as part of the deal. The hostel doesn't have the space, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you might also want to know about security as well. The house is the only one which is alarmed. The flats and the hostel are accessed through a main door which has an intercom for visitors, so they're quite safe. Now, they're all furnished.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff in the flat's quite modern looking, which most people like, and it's in quite good condition, considering the use it's had. All the furniture and fittings in the house have just been replaced after the last tenants left, so they'll be in excellent condition. And the furniture in the hostel is okay. It's about what you'd expect, really.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 15 to 20 on page 4. Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
Well, I think I'd better go and look at them all. Where are they?
Here, let me show you on the map. We're here in the accommodation agency on the High Street, facing north. Directly opposite us is the bank, okay? If you stay on this side of the road and walk towards West Street, the house is not that far. It's next but one to the swimming pool just before West Street. It's very convenient because it's near the shops. The hostel is on the corner of West Street and St Anne's Road, near the roundabout. It's not a very wonderful building, but it's nice and close to the college. The flat is a bit of a walk, but it's in very nice surroundings. To get to the flat, you go down West Street towards the centre of the city, and the building is on the corner just before the first turning on the left. Although we're a bit outside the city centre, the facilities aren't bad. There's a post office just round the corner from here. You go down the High Street and turn right into West Street, and it's on your right. Or, if you want to go to the city centre, you could get the bus from here, just a few metres down the road from the agency, going east. You don't even need to cross the road.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3 on page 5. Section 3. You will hear 2 law students called Eleanor and Jamie discussing their work on whether the evidence given by people who witness crimes is reliable. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26 on page 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Hi, Jamie. I've just been reading this book about eyewitness testimonies. It really goes into how much we can actually rely on what the people who witness crimes actually say and what things influence eyewitness reliability.
Oh, I've read a couple of case studies on that too. Can we compare notes?
Good idea. It's fascinating to learn that eyewitness identification is such compelling evidence in both civil and criminal trials.
You mean if a witness says something, generally they're believed?
And reading between the lines, I'd say that when a witness gives evidence in a very self-assured way, everyone takes them at their word. Whether they're a doctor who speaks with an assumed authority or the average person in the street, it doesn't seem to matter as much as their manner.
Right. So is that textbook worth reading?
Yes, it's a good book, divided into user-friendly sections. It refers to case studies and the conclusions are clearly underlined. But actually, some of the cases are more than 10 years old now.
Well, it's the same problem with the survey reports our tutor gave us. But at least they draw on a representative sample.
That's good.
All the books point out that eyewitness statements are very often unreliable.
But there can be good reasons for that, like an incident may happen at night, in the dark.
Or it happened some way away. But it's the fact that it can happen in just a split second that makes the witness's account so unreliable.
That point's made very strongly in what I've read too.
Yeah.
Have you read anything about photo identifications?
Yes, about the procedure and the reliability of witnesses looking at photos of different people and picking out the suspect. The case studies all clearly show how easy it is to sway a witness's choice of photo, even just by the flicker of an eye. But steps have been taken now to avoid this happening.
And are the witnesses told exactly what they have to do?
Mostly. But the trouble is, most people focus on the photos and choose the most likely suspect from the bunch and forget about the actual incident and who they saw at the time.
And I read something about a naive observer. Do you know what that is? Is it a witness who's never been in a court before?
Oh, I understood it to mean someone who's had nothing to do with the event, and they're asked to look at the photos and pick out the potential suspect.
That figures. Then they can see if the photos are a good set and make sure one person doesn't stand out.
Another thing I read was that witnesses don't like to change their minds once they've made a particular statement. I thought people might worry about the fact that they told a lie in court and think they might be punished in some way. But it's simply that they're afraid of seeming unintelligent or lightweight.
Yeah, people are reluctant to lose face. Imagine if a case had been going on for weeks and you suddenly realised you'd got something wrong right at the beginning.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30 on page 6. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
Changing the topic slightly, can I just check with you what you've understood about the problems of interviewing child witnesses when they've witnessed, for example, a robbery?
Yes. Did you get the handout about the stages that should be followed when children are interviewed?
Yes. The rapport stage, when a relationship between the child and the interviewer is built up, seems to be crucial.
But many children fail to say anything that provides any real information. It must be hard for them not to feel a bit scared about being in a formal setting like a court building. Still, it's a good lead-in to open-ended questions, where the interviewer carefully sticks to their prepared questions in order to remain neutral.
I can see the point of that. But the handout discusses the issue of children simply not understanding the specialist language used, so the whole interview just gets more puzzling for them. I think the stage called closed questions is easier for children to handle. They just have to answer yes or no.
But everything's not so clear-cut in a child's world, and abstract concepts such as honesty haven't been fully grasped by young children.
You mean they make things up?
Apparently. And in the final stage, closure, where the interviewer has to check anything that hasn't been made clear to them by repeating previous questions, children often become suspicious of the questioner.
It must require lots of training to be able to interview children successfully.
Yes, I think.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4 on page 7. Section 4. You will hear a lecturer in museum science talking about an exhibition about the history and uses of plastics. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40 on page 7. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning. My name's Susan Mossman, and as well as being a part-time lecturer on the university's museum science degree, I'm also curator of a new exhibition opening at the Bidmouth Museum called Plasticity. This traces the history of plastics and ways they are being developed and used today. The first type of plastic was originally developed in response to a call from the makers of sports equipment. Animal-derived materials were becoming extremely expensive, so manufacturers launched a competition to find an alternative to ivory for making pool and billiard balls. Although various forms of plastic were developed, none of them were good enough to win the competition. But the inventors knew they were onto a good thing and started researching a variety of different substances, partly based on organic material, what we call semi-synthetics. One of the early semi-synthetic materials produced was the first commercially produced celluloid, or plastic film, which was made by dissolving cotton in a strong acid, such as nitric acid. Unfortunately, this had a tendency to explode, so technicians had to be very careful with it. They also experimented with making plastics out of products derived from milk, but this didn't really work, and efforts were therefore concentrated on other organic material. One of the first uses of plastic was in the production of artificial fabric, and the earliest successful one was a substitute for silk. This was obviously a very expensive fiber, so artificial alternatives were thought to be worth investing in. The next significant breakthrough came in 1907 with the invention of Bakelite. This was the first entirely synthetic plastic made in a laboratory. It was invented by Hendrik Baekeland, a chemist who had made a fortune from producing paper used in photographic processes. Bakelite is a pretty unusual type of plastic because it actually gets hard when it's heated, whereas most other plastic becomes more malleable when hot. That is, they become more plastic, which is, of course, where the name for the category of materials comes from. So, strictly speaking, Bakelite isn't a plastic at all. But now let's look at the exhibition itself. In it, we show a variety of semi-synthetic and totally synthetic plastics, some of them dating back 100 years. Some of the older plastics on display are unstable, This means that when they are in the process of degrading, they may produce gases which are acidic and which can cause neighboring objects in the display to disintegrate. We had to be very careful with these displays because there is one thing which causes plastic objects to degrade or break down, and that is light. So we've had to think of ways to get around this problem when setting up the objects on display. We have about 850 objects in the exhibition. One of our most interesting is a magnificent chandelier, a lamp designed to hang in the center of the ceiling of a big hall. It's only when you look carefully that you can see this is a wonderful example of recycling. It's made entirely of pens, ones which we use and throw away every day. A second exhibit, which is drawing a lot of attention, is a car made entirely from plastic, which is now in small-scale production in Japan. It's made of a semi-synthetic plastic using materials derived from wood, which is obtained from managed plantations, thereby further improving its environmental credentials. The advantage is that the vehicle is exceptionally lightweight, which means it runs on far less fuel than conventional cars, and can be adapted to run on different types. Finally, the most popular exhibit for children is...
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet.